It is kind of hard for me to hear you again, Kyle.
It is. What if I scoot just a little bit closer?
You gotta get yourself a boom, baby.
Yeah. Well, since I'm not worried about it being on camera, I can also just, really get right up on the mic. Right? Like,
that sounds uncomfortable. Look at how comfortable I look.
Just bring it right up here. Just right there. So make it easier to hear me, Dexter. Just.
It is easier to hear you, Kyle.
Right, like.
Easier to hear you.
Right there.
I appreciate it.
You know how to increase individual people's volume?
I don't.
In Discord, if you right-click on their name,
you know what?
It will have user volume.
Or on their picture, yep.
Yeah, you said, do you know how to increase people's individual volume? And I was like, sure didn't. And I immediately right-clicked, and I was like, that makes a lot of sense.
Yep. Fixed it.
Pro tip, Trish.
You are very welcome.
You just increased my heuristic processing power by 13%.
Ooh.
That's quite
no, it's probably more like 0.13 because there's a lot of... Anyways. You're awesome is the moral of the story.
Appreciated.
All right. Well, everybody's here. That's good. That's a good first sign. Everybody showed up to game. Thank you. Tonight for our kind of session 0, like I was saying, we might do the opening, but more importantly, I wanted to cover kind of walking through your characters and who they are in the world, help maybe develop some connections between your player characters with each other and looping them into NPCs in the town, whether that's one of the ones that I already sent over your way or one that we developed together tonight to kind of help build this town together. I also wanted to go over a few kind of some of my thoughts on I guess my thoughts on that, on building that out, and then asking you some questions about your preferences. So with that in mind, why don't we actually start with that, asking some of your preferences. So we'll do popcorn style. Yeah, very exciting. So once you've answered and we've had a little bit of a dialogue, feel free to toss it to the next person. I'll make Kevin. I'm going to make Kevin go first. He seems like a good person to be voluntold to start.
First point of order, when you're tossing food, is it a hot potato?
If it was food.
You said popcorn style.
Yeah, popcorn style.
And then toss it to somebody else.
That's fair. It's supposed to popcorn style is corporate speak, right? I guess you throw popcorn at people. I don't know. It's hot potato.
Do I look corporate to you? Anyway, ask your question.
Yeah, my question.
It's also an educational term, I'm just saying.
It's a what term?
It's used in education. It means something different, though.
Oh, good to know. So my question for you is, what is your favorite thing about role-playing games? What do you enjoy about rolling dice and playing creative tabletop games?
Well, I would say it's changed over the years. When I was a wee lad, it was the tactical combat, the power gaming, and min-maxing. But nowadays, it's more about the collaborative storytelling and the improv and the voices and the going from here to there. So I guess it would be more of just kind of building together and not just like smashing monsters. Of course, smashing monsters is fun, but I like to kind of have a reason for it. And writing backgrounds is always good, and little scenes and stories, and that's the stuff I like.
Great. And then if you want to toss that to somebody else.
I'm going to hot potato it to Trish.
Alrighty. Oh man, I love getting into the role play of stuff. Also building story with everybody. I love being able to do character development and like the hard moral questions that come along with tough choices to make. I sometimes enjoy when there's even a little bit of character conflict sometimes, depending on what it is, just to have a lot of interpersonal connections, and whether those are positive or negative. Smashing monsters is fun sometimes, but I'm all about the story. And I will hot potato it to Dexter.
So first of all, shout out, because I think Trish and I have been LARPing together for like 20 years. Possibly at this point.
I think so.
Because we both started LARPing when we were 1 year old. It's only in our like mid-20s. So anyway. No, just to refresh my brain on it. It's what is the big draw for me to role-playing games?
Yeah, what's your favorite thing about role-playing games? What is the big draw for you? What do you enjoy?
Probably similar to kind of what else has been said. Just the ability to create story with other people. To engage in kind of those like cinematic moments and make them your own with other people in a dynamic capacity has been something that I don't know. I found pretty enjoyable just watching the way that other people play off each other. While you're like collaboratively like narrating like a story. Mm-hmm. And then I will hot potato it to Ethan, not because it's my only choice, but because I greatly appreciate Ethan as a person.
Oh no. So I do really enjoy the combat. I like the opportunity to put a character that I've built through the puzzle of combat. I do have a tendency to be more of I'm gonna build a framework of a character and then kind of develop their personality as I play. So the collaborative world building is also kind of building my character and seeing how it interacts with the world that it falls through. I think I've got a character this time that has some more development than I usually do. So I'm excited to see how that works.
Very cool. So I guess with that character in mind, I'll toss this next one right back at you. With this game, I know we've talked about this a little bit already, Ethan. But what kind of game are you hoping to play? Like, are you hoping for an exploration game, mystery, a hack and slash, I guess we'll start with some of those as ideas. What kind of game are you hoping to have with this group and in this setting?
Yeah. So I am down for some combat, but I think I am more interested in world exploration, discovering what kind of secrets you want to throw into this world, and exploring and discovering what it is and playing with it.
Okay.
Yeah, I think that's my primary interest. And I will pass to Trish.
I'm gonna ask one quick clarifying question before you do that.
No.
When you're thinking about
No
this,
follow-ups.
when you're thinking about the secrets that exist in the world, are you thinking that regional to just the town? Like you're interested in kind of that interpersonal, like who are these people that I'm coexisting with in this space in this small town, or are you thinking more what's going on beyond the borders of this town? What's happening in the darkness under the world? What secrets are out there?
Okay. The hidden, the unknown. Like I am very much into the like anything could be out there. Love the lost civilizations. and just kind of doing that. Hey, we found a new thing. Let's see what's there that we can take or loot. Maybe try and figure out what the hell happened to this civilization. Maybe there's threats to our colony that we should find out about. Stuff like that.
Great.
Really into it.
All right, and Trish.
I kind of like both the idea of exploration, finding the secrets of the world, but also delving into the secrets of our own town and kind of the intrigue between the different town folk and the investigation of how did this happen in the first place? What were the forces that caused something like this? And those kind of plays. But also kind of getting out and like, can we make it through the surface? Can we just find new resources and whatnot for our group? Can we be the bearers of discovery that bring greatness or ruin? Either one.
About ruin.
Plague bringers.
Love it. Yeah.
Not necessarily a plague.
What?
Enough about the plague.
Shh! Don't talk. We don't talk about the plague until at least session 10 or 15.
Yeah. Yeah, I think.
We were born in the plague.
Yeah.
Molded.
Oh, there's
Yeah. Great.
All right, I will toss it to Kevin.
Thank you. I'm kind of in agreement with everybody. I feel like, exploring, and usually to make some good story, there's like some kind of, I guess, in all the modules, there's some existential kind of threat where you gotta save the world, save the colony, and stuff like that. So I guess it's pretty easy to lean into that one, being like, hey, this is what we should probably do. But it's not, I guess, one of my favorite games that I think I ever played in the fantasy setting was like you were level 1 or 2 and you all of a sudden got called the hero for helping defend the town from some goblins, and that just felt so enriching for some reason. You can kill a dragon at level 15, but it didn't feel as good as being the hero at level 2. So it's just some stupid stuff like that. It's all a matter of scale. And whether we are delving or spelunking or whatever you want to call it, exploration seems like kind of the direction that this may go. Are we finding ancient civilizations down here? Are we finding like sandworm tunnels? Are we finding a reason for the whole collapse? I don't know, but if you let me take your hand, I'll follow you.
If I can interrupt before you pass to somebody else, something you said made me think of like not just discovering threats, but also potentially discovering something that we don't necessarily want to just bring back to the village, but it's important and maybe valuable, and then like there's strife or conflict between us because we have to try and figure out what the hell to do with this thing that we found.
Sure.
Also a possibility.
Love it.
All right, Dexter.
Yeah, I mean, pretty similar to other stuff that was said. I really like exploration in a game. I really like being able to be like, I wonder what's over there. Let's go check it out. Right, and kind of unraveling different, like, maybe lost, forgotten stuff, unraveling a mystery. Some of the games that I've really enjoyed haven't been like so much uncovering secrets of the past as they've been like solving like a noir style like case, right? Where you're still exploring, but it's like having to put things together and figure things out. So I really like that in a game. I like the rules portion of my brain that really digs rules and like customizing things, likes base building, and sort of, for lack of a better way to put it, like when the best reference I have is Assassin's Creed Brotherhood, when you get like all of the assassins that are your homies, and then you can send them out on missions, right? Like little NPC homies that you can get to do stuff for you, like that kind of stuff. That is engaging. I don't really like a ton of bookkeeping. At least I am not usually the person who keeps very strict documentation in a campaign. But I like those things. I like high fantasy. I like high action, and cinematic stuff, and opportunities for multiple resolutions to a scene. Knowing and feeling like there's impact to the story given the things that we do. And then usually I'm down for whatever the game is, as long as there's an ability to impact it.
I like the sentiment that the role that I have as a dungeon master is to create a narrative framework for you as your characters, and sometimes the dice rolls that you have to tell the story and to create the story, right? I help keep things moving and shifting, but the story comes from all of you at the table. Oh yeah, hey, look at that. We got a twofer on that one. Because my next question was, do you want to focus on the town and relationships in the town, or on the things outside of it? And it sounds like it is a healthy mix, correct? Which is good. Yeah, I think it's important that the relationships that you have in town are both mold the things that you're doing outside of it and are changed by what you find, right? It's kind of, the town becomes kind of your touchstone to drive what you're doing and why.
Yeah, touchstone's a good way to put it, because otherwise in a lot of the other games where it's like, you're just adventure, and it's like, all right, well, what about this crafting? What about this downtime? What about this character development that I'm looking for? And it's just like, nope, you have to beat the dragon.
Right.
You have to get to the stronghold.
The grind.
Like the grind, yeah. So, yeah, a healthy mix.
Great.
Preferable.
Great. Yeah, I know. So for my part in it, I do have I'm going to say a resolution point. Let's say it's like a chapter, right? So I have a point where eventually I would like you all to end up, or a space that I would like you to end up. But in full disclosure, how you get there, where that's even at, the methods by which you can get to that point in the story, are all just whatever, right? There are many ways. I don't want to say that phrase. There are many paths available, and I don't even know what they are because you guys haven't started playing yet, and trailblazing. So I'm very excited to see where we end up at that point, because to Kevin's point, this isn't an adventure, right? It's not, you're not being driven towards a dragon that you have to go kill on a time clock because we have 3 hours to play tonight, and that's what we're getting. This is a story-driven, character-driven world, and how we go through that space is totally what you guys are enjoying doing. If that's in a docksider bar chatting with somebody for several hours because we're having a really great roleplay scene, that's what it is, right? If it's you guys put on your packs and go diving into a tunnel and come across some kind of mythical beast that you're now feeding candy to because you realize that its poop is gold, or what have you. That's where we end up. Oh, the look of disappointment on Ethan's face.
It was reminding me of was it aphids that shit candy?
Right, perfect, delicious.
I'm just stoked because sometimes, like, I've had games where, like, I've really enjoyed the combat that we've had moving forward, and then there's been, like, some of my favorite game sessions have been ones where we've just been, like, trying to buy things in town, you know. And so, like, the idea of, like, having a town and then having these caves, and then apparently having the option that we find a candy-eating monster that poops gold. You know, like, it's just what we've gotten so far of what we may be in store for seems pretty rad and very moldable to, like, just how we want to interact with it, which is extremely cool.
Which one? Good. Okay, so
Agreed.
so that actually covers my kind of like player side questions as far as what kind of direction you guys would like to go. There are a couple things I want to toss out, and we'll get to those NPC and PC connections in just a moment. But so first, and this actually kind of ties into a conversation a little bit that we were having earlier. There's the kind of rule of cool, right? If something is neat, toss it out there. It doesn't need to be something purely driven by what's on your character sheet. And sometimes that means, you know, we're gonna collaboratively break the rules in ways that make sense for what's going on, but maybe aren't strictly, you know, I'm not gonna make you roll an athletics check every single time you jump, you know, 15 feet because you're the thing that you're doing is neat, right? Or maybe we will be like, yeah, roll an athletics check to jump and stick a pole in that wagon wheel that's going by in order to make it flip like a chariot in a gladiator movie, right? And we're gonna be open. I am open to that. If you have recommendations at any point while we're playing, and I'm gonna ask that you are also open to that, which I've gamed with all of you, so I know you are. To kind of making the rules support the story, not get bogged down by it. Cool. Pacing. So for pacing in the game, my goal is to make combat quick and intense most of the time. It's going to be quick and intense if there's fighting. You know, I kind of want everybody to lean forward, lean into it, kind of be thinking about what you want to do before it's your turn, to kind of drive that forward, and also be thinking about, like, you know, fighting is brutal. So think about that and what you're doing. Fighting isn't always the resolution that you want. You know, like it just because you have the ability to light somebody on fire, that's a pretty traumatic thing to do for yourself and for the people around you. So think about it. You know, stabbing somebody is a big deal. Yeah, yeah, Kevin.
Also get you banished.
Yes, right. It can also get you banished from the town. Like you be marked as a criminal. Which is definitely a black mark in a town that's only 2,500, 3,000 people. Like you'll be known. Your family will become known for their deeds. So something to keep in mind. There will also be I enjoy fights that are puzzles sometimes, whether that's terrain in the environment or puzzles in how you interact with the foe, right? You know, there's the classic like JRPG thing where a boss monster has 3 different phases, or a group of monsters working in concert have different powers when together, right? So that kind of thing may come up when you're in fights, right? And then I want to leave space for conversation. Right? Our roleplay conversations, I typically have a tendency of trying to drive those conversations to an end, and it's actually something I personally want to work on, as I want to enjoy those conversations more while we're chatting, rather than just trying to pull everybody to the next thing, right? we're going to be fortunate that we're setting aside, 4 or so hours every time we get together, or more, depending on when we schedule these, to play. So we have time to enjoy those moments. We have time to sit back and kind of like have a full conversation with somebody, have time to actually convince them of something or to learn about things rather than trying to force it through in an hour and a half or 2.5 hours. So I want us to relax in conversation. Of course, obviously there will be intense conversations too, but relax in those moments, and then when we're in combat, really be on the spot, right? Really drive that conflict. Cool. And then open scene. So by that I mean you guys should feel free to fill the space and assume things. Just because I didn't say that there wasn't the classic, because you walk into a tavern and I don't say that there's a chandelier, doesn't mean that there's not a chandelier that you can interact with, right? You should feel free to be like, my buddy Sal is over there at a table, or ask like, hey, I look around the bar, is my buddy X, Y, or Z person? Even if you've never told me about X, Y, or Z person, feel free to toss it out there, right? Like, there's this great rule in a game that I've been playing recently that has a thing called flashbacks, where they adjust what the scene is now that they're going through based on actions that they took before. And they're like, so quick flashback, 3 days ago I stored an envelope here that had the credentials to get past this guard or whatever. Or last week I was tying my shoe and this little girl ran out in the road and I stopped her from getting run over, and it turns out that her dad is one of the gardeners, and so he's the guy that I'm dealing with now, so he thinks favorably about me. Feel free to kind of play in that space if you want to a little bit. If a scene seems right and your character, it feels right for your character to have had an interaction here with this person or around this person, and I will totally bounce off of you. I might ask the clarifying question, are you telling the truth or lying? But aside from that, like, I'm happy to bounce around with you all and through the whole game, to be honest. So let's play with that and have fun. I think that ties up my pontificating part of it. Before we get into the nitty gritties of your characters and building out connections between each other, establishing an NPC, and then kind of discussing what might be a good fringe power or item or benefit that your character should have going into the campaign. So let's start with yes, sir.
Before we do that, can I run to the fridge and re-up my milkshake?
Yeah, we can take a quick break.
Okay.
You got milkshakes?
Yeah,
Can I come to your yard?
absolutely.
Yeah.
I'm on my way.
All right. So in that very PG-13 note,
Do we have to
you
keep
got
it like PG-13?
No.
Do you have your
we
bleeper
actually,
handy? Because
if just for
Just saying.
myself, it's the mute button.
I'm gonna fucking swear.
That is
Yeah.
a decent question, though. Like, what level of audacity do we want to aim for, or
So
not?
I know for me, I tend to describe horror quite extensively, or attempt to, sometimes poorly, but that's my like, somebody got blasted with a shotgun in one of our games, right? And I described how their chest got turned to hamburger as somebody tried to climb their way up his body, and they reached in and flesh pulled away, right, as they were. And that is going to continue if everybody's comfortable with that. But by contrast,
Sounds like what you're saying is a little spicy language. No big deal.
yeah, a little spicy language is fine. Cursing is fine. Yeah. I feel like we don't need to talk about themes that are inappropriate, but at the same time, maybe we should. I mean, I've gamed with you all long enough that I know we're not going to have any themes of rape or forced, um, yeah, of like forcing your characters on anybody else. That's not really in anybody's wheelhouse or some fantasy that they need to play out at a D&D table. Um, their misogyny and racism may come up in the context of a fantasy setting, and it will always be done from the place of either that character being a villain or that character being ignorant and um, uh, redeemable, right?
Total J-hole,
Right, right.
as the cheat would put it.
Yes, yeah, being a j-hole. I I do want to leave space in there for both your characters to be flawed in that way, as long as there is growth there, if that's a thing that you want to have. Um, but also understand that people respond to you and react to you appropriately based on that. Also, characters who are flawed in that way will respond and react appropriately when chastised or um, dealt with. Not that you should make it necessarily a crusade, because that's not always a fun game to go do that kind of stuff. And I will try not to have every other person be, racist to gnomes and drow and bugbears and what have you. Yeah. Are there
I've
any?
played in plenty of your games. I know how it goes.
You know how it goes. Yeah. There's always that one guy. Yeah. Every session.
Yeah, dude.
Yeah. Oh, it's Kevin's fault now.
Just don't overdo it.
Mm-hmm. Agreed. Are there any other, aside from what I've just discussed there, is there anything in particular that comes to mind that you would like to steer away from? Oh, I also don't tend to do romance. That's just me, though. I don't. Yeah. If you decide like that you're, whatever you do amongst yourself, do amongst yourself. But yeah, I don't really romance.
Well, I mean, you're the storyteller. What happens if we decide to romance an NPC?
Yeah, it'll be pretty surface level.
Cool.
Right. That's kind of the way of it. You're like, ooh, I really dig Natalie Crowdust. That's exactly who I'm pursuing. She will definitely take you on a late night trip on her boat. That is absolutely what will happen. And
Making waves.
and you probably won't come back.
I love it.
Yeah.
If you know Natalie, you ain't coming back.
You're not coming back. It's odd. She always has
They never do.
Yeah, she always has a 5-person crew, and they always seem to change. But yeah. So, is there anything else that anyone is either, I guess, is definitely not wanting to have come up? That they have a concern might. There are things that just won't. But
As always, violence against children is a sore subject for most people.
yep. I was literally just thinking that after I mentioned that. I was like, I have definitely run for groups that was a problem with, and I will avoid it moving forward.
Slavery is also one of those ones that can get persnickety.
Mm-hmm. I agree. Sorry, I had a text message. It's a bunch of them. I will. If slavery is involved in the story, because I don't. It is a fantasy trope. Unfortunately, it's kind of an easy fantasy trope, so I tried it. It's the same with violence against kids or rape or things like that. In a lot of ways, those become easy tropes to identify villains within a setting. and because they're kind of easy and lazy tropes, part of what I'm trying to do is not do those, right? That's it. Historically, there have been in fantasy games, there have been cultures like the Yanti, right, that take slaves, if you will, like that force themselves into a faction or into a group, and then take on people that they mentally change in order to be servants to them. If something like that happens in this game, which I actually don't know if it will, but if something like that comes up, I will handle it delicately, and it will be addressed in a way that isn't white savior, and that is a space where there is a resolution to it that you guys can impact and affect. Is that a fair way to address that, or would you prefer that it's just not?
I think that's fair.
Another one for me is like violence against people with disabilities.
Yeah.
That's a hard one.
Yeah.
Dealing with situations where like you have people, with particularly like with mental disabilities, being like taken advantage of. Those are things for me that are very difficult, and I will probably usually write it into a character because it's one of those things where like
You're gonna do something bad.
You're gonna respond strongly to it, so you want to be able to respond
strongly to it, like out of game. So, and I know that that's going to be the case. So, I usually put it in there about like that kind of stuff. So,
yeah,
that's one of the things specifically. I think like
yeah. That's another one of those, right? Where it's like elder abuse, child abuse, spousal abuse, partner abuse. Those kinds of stories can be engaging and interesting to participate in, but it needs to be handled. I don't know. I can't say correctly because I'm not necessarily an expert on what correct is, but they need to be handled delicately if they do come up, right? So I can promise that nothing like that will be improvised. And anything like that will be considered and deliberate, right? And will have an impactful reason. That said, I don't like those stories myself, so I don't want to say it won't happen, but it is very unlikely to happen. Right? I do not have a story where there's a group of dwarves that have all lost their left arm. They were all born without their left arm, so they're reserved to a lower caste or whatever, right? And forced into a certain work. Or there's a building filled with old wizards that have lost their marbles, and so people there make them create gold for them each day or whatever. What's up, Ethan?
I was going to offer up, since we never really got into details, I would like to say maybe my extended family on my father's side is primarily just into the illicit mushroom trade.
I love it because I just finished writing up a character who is very much a fan of illicit mushrooms for an adventure series that I'm writing, and I was talking with Chris about how he needs to be a cross multiverse character.
Nice.
And so now Fizzlebamp will definitely be in this game.
Is it BAM
Fizzlebamp
or
Fizzlebamp?
BAMF.
BAMP Bamp. And then Fizzlebamp. And then if you've ever heard of Paul Stamets, he's a mycologist, and he's a strong proponent of psilocybin.
Yeah, I think I know who you're talking about.
Psilocybin, yeah. Interesting dude. So, of course, this guy's name is Fizzlebamp Stamets out of respect.
Nice.
Yeah.
Nice. Yeah, that guy's done some interesting stuff in the realm of mycology.
Yeah. I mean, he's an actual expert with a PhD. Yeah. Like, it's what he does.
Yeah.
And He grows normal mushrooms and does a lot of other things too.
I want to mention too, as you're explaining like how you would handle situations, yeah, like I have like a lot of confidence in your ability to do these things right with care
Mhm.
and like like to do them without causing issues. So I just it's also like for me, I have no worries about how you would choose to handle a situation.
Sure. Thank you. Um, yeah, I don't know why. I don't know why I'm hesitating from just saying like it's not going to happen because it's not. Like those stories aren't going to happen. There we go. You have put your preferences out there, and I am going to create and run a game that has those preferences. Like, I don't know. I still have my like classic. I could always make a mistake. I could always make a mistake. There we go. That's a better way of saying all this. I could always make a mistake. Please feel free to stop me and call me if I'm making an error in that. But I am not going to have abuse of the disabled. I am not going to have rape. I am not going to have harm to children as parts in this game, and slavery. And I'm not going to have slavery as a part in this game. No.
I like it.
Yeah. If I deviate from that or if I err, call me on it because that is not my. I don't need to explore those topics.
Yeah, lead with that next time.
Yeah, sorry. That was a that was I realized I was sitting here trying to build in loopholes or ignore preferences in ways that weren't actually what I intended by the words that I was saying, if that makes sense.
Why are you trying to fool us?
Trying to get one over on you. Trying to find out the things that you would detest and like least in order to emphasize in the game.
This isn't Twilight Imperium, Kyle.
Oh. That's
Right.
fair. That's fair. All right, great. Well, so those conversations out of the way, let's dig into the complex stuff because that was all super easy. We'll start with the telling about your character, sharing some information. Who would like to go first?
I can go
I think
first
Kevin
since
would
I
like
already
to
kind
go
of.
first.
Okay.
But Ethan,
well, I think Ethan
I was
actually
going to
would
say,
like-
since I already kind of bled out a little information, I could dive in a little deeper.
yeah,
Illicit mushrooms.
go for it.
Yeah, so hang on. Yeah. Meizaphir is a half-elf, drow half-elf. His father's side of the family is totally the problematic family that are into all the illicit stuff. Anything goes wrong in the area, they're generally the first suspects you go round up. So he's definitely got a bit of baggage there. He tends to be often looked at as a troublemaker, rabble-rouser kind of thing. His mother's side of the family, his grandfather was the one that did a lot of raising him. He was a explorer of tunnels, trying to find a way out, and raised Meizaphir with a lot of the energy what's the word I'm looking for here? Desire, fueled his desire to like explore and find the various mysteries of the underworld that we're in here, and also a way out eventually.
And that's the your mother's side of the family is the Drow side of your family, correct?
Yeah.
Okay.
His grandfather passed on, say, I don't know, about a decade ago now. Been a while. His mother was more interested in kind of exploring the waterways and has been missing for a little while. So Meizaphir has been mostly living with / raised by his father, his uncles, his cousins, like dad's side of the family. So venturing out a lot, coming back with stuff, doing some trades and stuff. But yeah, there's that taint of up to no good from his kin and him that are often associated from around here.
Great. With that in mind, with the description that Ethan has just given of Meizaphir, is there anyone amongst the three of you that's got a character that would be particularly drawn or have issues with Meizaphir? Just from the jump. To
I don't
establish
think I'd have issues
to establish a
with his
connection.
stuff. My character would probably be interested in the stuff that you find, and want to look at it. And he would probably also be interested about stuff that you encounter or find while out in the dark.
Same, actually, especially if it has medicinal properties.
Okay. Any potential grudges with his family due to loved ones were lost to illicit substances that his family provided, kind of stuff?
There would be none of that from me.
Okay, cool.
Maybe a little bit, only because dealing in poisons is no bueno.
You may have to treat some of the people who have gotten hooked on his family's wares.
Yeah.
Yikes.
Love
Yeah.
it.
I'm sure in Gornak's youth he partook of some of your substances with his, grief background kind of thing. Trying to make the emotions stop or calm down or whatever.
When used properly, mushrooms and stuff can help you process.
It's true. When given in hero dosage all the time, perhaps it'll have different results. Cool.
I think that your character has tried, like your family has tried to get me to like take illicit substances forever. And they were always like trying to push them on me. Like, I'm like, hey, did you get like more things out in like the dark? And your family's like, yeah, we did, but what about these mushrooms? And I'm like, or the things. And they're like, yeah, but have you thought about because I'll tell you when it's my turn.
Okay. About to pass to you, but like I can definitely see like, well, this thing's real weird, and we haven't figured out what it's for. But like, if you want to take a crack at it, this batch of mushrooms over here might make you process faster. So just putting that out there, just, give it a go.
Could open.
Open your mind, open the doors, figure it out. Yeah. I will go ahead and pass to Dexter.
Tell them why it would not open any doors for you.
So so my character's name is name's Walker, and he's a Warforged. And what happened was he was a working bot, like a machine that they had that was like there, and had it working, and they sent it off into the dark to go do the thing that it like normally does. And then it was gone for a long time, and they thought that it had just gotten lost. And then, like, a while later, it came back into town, but now it was conscious. And, like, kind of upgraded looking. And so he has no idea, really, like, how he came to be. He just, like, awoke in the dark. And, had a bit of an experience with that, and then has kind of just been figuring himself out since then. And kind of came into town, figured out, kind of found his niche in the plague where he kind of fits in with everything as an artificer, and is interested in looking at how things work, interested in learning things, and has this like unending question about how he came to be that he's like slowly working towards. And so like for you, like the thing is like, hey, you should try these mushrooms. And I'm like, really guys, I don't think that's gonna have the intended effect. Perhaps your wares would be better spent elsewhere.
Sounds good. That makes sense. Have you considered acid?
No.
Mind you, that's not Meizaphir.
No. Meizaphir doesn't. Meizaphir doesn't mess with drugs.
Yeah.
No, but I assume it's like Meizaphir comes back and like his family goes out and they bring back these things. They're like, yeah, we found this thing and like we don't really know what it does. Do you want to take a look at it? Right? Like kind of thing. And I'm like, absolutely.
Yeah.
And then like I go to take a look at it, and while I'm doing that, they're like, oh, you keep tinkering with it. Do you want some of this stuff? Like, do you want to like this thing? It's not cheaper bash, like things and stuff, right? And they're always like trying
Recreational break?
Yeah. So I see that being kind of a thing that would be pretty funny.
Yeah, they just sit around while you're doing that and investigating things because they don't want to let it out of their own sight while you're doing it.
Right.
And as they're sitting around, they just start doing drugs. Maybe people wander in and out for a quick deal. Yeah.
And Walker likes going into the dark like himself and trying to find things, and he's probably very interested in mechanics, very interested in like the mechanical, and like the mechanical is particularly as it applies to the arcane, like the interactions and the intersections with that, and just like trying to learn as much as he can, and kind of with the viewpoint that like no knowledge is really wasted, but also he's kind of a slow and meticulous kind of person, very intentional about the things that he does. Doesn't really have much of a background or a family or other things like that. I think he may be the only Warforged in this place.
Yes, we'll say he is the only Warforged.
So probably a bit of a novelty to a lot of people.
How long has he been in the town?
I would assume, like, because how long have we been underground? Like 100 years, right?
The collapse happened 150 years, yeah.
So I would probably assume around, like, I don't know, like, in setting for Eberron, they're, like, the oldest ones are, like, 8.
Sure.
Right?
Yeah.
So, I don't, it could be,
this isn't Eberron.
I know.
So you can have him have been created in the collapse due to things that happened then. You could have him be somebody who awakened 20 years ago in a tunnel, and there happened to be a bunch of gnomes around him who were looking at him, and he suddenly became aware, and he was sitting there surrounded by all these belly patch gnomes who were like,
I like the idea that like when the collapse first happened and they were trying to figure out like machinery and stuff like that, like what resources they had, they sent this guy out, and he went out and had an experience that was sort of like waking up and like seeing some light or something in the distance that kind of guided him to a place where he would go to town.
Mm-hmm.
Right? But not like having just achieved cognition and consciousness, not knowing whatever that thing was and not having words for it at all. And then being in town and being like, oh, this is interesting. Okay. And just kind of going from there. So whatever it was that happened also provided him with some context and things. But he woke up by himself in the dark with some happening that happened.
How would you feel about... Oh, go ahead.
I can say, he's like Wally.
Wally.
Kinda. Like, so there's like a couple places that I'm pulling from. Have you guys ever...
One more time.
What it's called?
What's the name?
You've been cutting out a lot.
I have?
Yep.
You know what? We'll fix that. Is that better?
Thanks.
I'm gonna pull a Kyle right here.
You gotta get way up. You gotta get way up on there. Yeah.
Way
Get all the SMR on it.
Perfect.
But no, the movie Chappie, it's like about this dude that invents an AI, And then like puts him into a robot, and then like a bunch of jacked up stuff happens to him, kind of. But there's multiple places that I'm pulling stuff from. I've actually never seen Wally. Yeah, I know, right? But
Gotta.
Neither of us.
if I'm playing this guy, I'll watch him. Maybe I'll get some inspo.
It's a cute movie.
It's adorable.
So here's the
Never
question for you: how would you feel about Walker? It's pretty clear that Walker wasn't built by the miners originally.
Yeah.
Like he was already down. He himself, his existence is proof that there are other things.
So he was like a service bot that existed that they like fell down and found.
Yeah.
And then repurposed to do some work, kind of thing.
Got it.
Right. How would you?
I'm down.
How would you feel about that?
I'm good for that.
Okay. So yeah, like he might have even been found shortly before the collapse, right? By them as they were down here excavating, and he got put to work because it's way down here. But his existence, he is the thing that removes faith from the equation that there are other civilizations out there, that there are other things down here.
I'm down for that.
Okay.
And then he's been apparently then at that point he's been in the town the entire time the town's existed, and he's just kind of been like this, probably not reclusive but solitary like individual that is like surrounded by I imagine his like the place where he lives being like a one-room building that is just a workshop with like a corner where he like powers down at night, you know. And so like you know where to find him and stuff like that, but that's just kind of been his life, has been tinkering and trying to get answers to as many questions. And he probably has a bunch of books because he likes books, probably likes to read.
Was he? Are you going with he's been conscious the whole time, or was he maybe malfunctioning, or say had a consciousness block that cleared up recently?
So I think probably conscious the whole time, right? Was found like down there whenever, either before the thing or whatever. They tried fixing up whatever this service bot was, sent it out, and then it came back pretty soon after, like maybe a couple of months. And he's kind of been there for a while. I don't necessarily mind there being instances where Walker's like gone out into the dark and comes back and people are like, what happened? And he's like, I don't remember all of it. So I'm fine with that kind of idea in terms of like not necessarily always remembering what happens out in the dark, or having like glitches or something like that. I'm open to that thing, but I don't necessarily like I didn't plan for it and I'm not particularly invested in it.
Sure.
Oh, no, that wouldn't work long term. No, I was just thinking like perhaps somebody scavenged something at some point and brought it back into the city center that activated his consciousness. And so like when he goes out into the deep, he doesn't always remember what happens because he gets outside the periphery and kind of blanks and eventually makes his way back. And
I like the idea that he just walked out and woke up.
Right. For the reasons that he is trying to find.
For whatever reason he's trying to find, he woke up in the dark somewhere and came back to town.
Yeah, I've got some.
And now he's trying to figure out like what was the impetus for achieving consciousness.
Yeah, I've got some
where
ideas.
My spark of life come from.
Right.
Yeah. I dig it.
I expect maybe we have gone out exploring from time to time. Potentially if I have found something that I can't necessarily bring back that you would be interested in.
Yeah, probably. Walker, I don't think he's particularly strong.
No, but you could investigate.
No, it would be more like you can investigate something out here, I can't bring it back to town, so you're gonna have to come with me and check it out.
Yeah. 100%. Down for that, for sure.
Are there any other connections that easily come to mind? Either pros or cons, positive connections or negative ones. That Gornak or that I'm gonna be able to say Kheddeerta. Kheddeerta. Yes, I'm gonna make it a mission. I was telling Kevin earlier that you always come up with such fun names that are evocative of the world, and that I always fail to pronounce the name correctly, or I shorten it into a nickname. So my mission is to say Kheddeerta every time, and not shorten it to Ked or Deer. Well, crap. Somebody
Actually, she probably often would go by Deerta.
By Deerta? Okay, great. Thank you for making it yeah, it's not me now that's failing.
We'll have to remember it in formal events.
Yes, that is true.
Deerta Lichenstitch.
Yes, which is also an excellent surname.
I like
Did you
that.
say Lichenstitch?
Lichenstitch, like lichen.
Mm-hmm.
L-Y, I believe it's probably
Yeah.
spelled.
L-I-C-H.
Like a Frankenstein monster kind of werewolf kind of deal?
Oh, lichen, as in the organism, algae and mushroom, and stitch, stitching.
That's what she
Now-
wants us to think.
That's what she... Yeah.
That's what she wants us to think.
Yeah,
Now I'm seeing it Ethan's way.
Yeah, your secret power is definitely lycanthropy. And that's
Yes.
that is where you can become plant life material and stick to walls. That's your Once a month you become lichen.
Well, she hasn't
True.
seen the full moon yet, so we can't be 100% sure
can't.
she's not.
Yeah, you can't be certain because it's a family surname. So
She's a lichen.
Yep. All right. So connections to Walker. It sounds like Meizaphir has a pretty easy one there. Gornak and Kheddeerta. Or is there anything that calls to you from what Walker shared?
I kind of think that Kheddeerta is a little bit solitary in her own right, just because she gets so absorbed in her studies and absorbed in making concoctions and whatnot, being an herbalist and kind of the town healer, that she also understands the whole, like, I'm just focused and in my zone, and I may forget to take care of myself. And she'd also be the type of person to just, like, leave things that he might want in front of him while he's powered down and then skitter off again.
I like it.
Yeah, the gift giver.
Yeah. Well, because one of the things that I imagine too is like exchanging, like your character and my character exchanging things of interest to the other, because there's likely of no interest to the other party. Like I'm like, oh, I found a bunch of like mushrooms and like other things like out in the dark. I don't eat. And if I eat these things, they're likely to not do anything. So here you can have these. And then like as a druid, I imagine you'd be like, oh yeah, it has gear. Don't. Right? Like, like that kind of thing.
It gets a puzzle box. Now, Kheddeerta is a gnome. So there's also the tinkering aspect that might come through a little bit, just a little bit.
Okay.
With this
I take
metal,
it back then.
with this metal machine man.
But it would be kind of like that whole, like, oh, I found something. I bet Walker would really like this. And I'm fascinated by the shininess that is the metal thing over there. So here you are, and let me watch what you do with it. Like, what are you going to do with it? And that kind of I'm going to tinker vicariously through you as you do stuff.
I like the idea that he just gets funny looks all the time. Like, people are just like, oh, right, it's that fucking guy. Right? Like,
Or you
kind of that.
decorated by small children at all the festivals.
Yeah. They just, like,
They
climb
have,
on
they
him.
have, they have a game where it's like put the shiny mushroom on Walker.
Say, how high up on him can you climb? Who can climb the highest on him?
You get home and you're just covered in magnets because all the kids have been hurling little
magnetic rocks at him.
Kids come up.
Oh, man.
Can we play the magnet game? Walker's like, sure.
Has everyone here seen The Good Place?
Yeah.
I have read enough about it to know everything.
Oh, okay.
But
the AI artificial person in the show can't get intoxicated, except magnets have a tendency to make her behave as though she were intoxicated. I'm just seeing, like, he gets covered with magnets and just starts acting drunk as fuck.
I like the idea of magnets maybe having a negative impact on Walker. I don't know if Dexter is open to that, but like, I think if you come across
the holy lodestone, all of a sudden he just fries. Dead.
It doesn't
possible.
necessarily fry, but gets a little loopy.
Might make you a little loopy.
That
You
wouldn't
might
be
start
my
to shut
favorite.
down. Yeah. Did you say that wouldn't be your favorite?
Wouldn't be my favorite.
Oh, that's
It's
fair.
like walking around. I'm like, this like magical.
It'd be like Mr. Bean in Rat Race.
Yeah, you just
Right,
have to.
yeah.
You just have to make sure your friends are
Narcolepsy.
around. Yeah.
Right. Well, what would be the worst if they were like, no, we were planning on the.
Oh, you cut out.
Whenever you get excited. No more getting excited.
Yeah. You gotta be. You have to
maybe
be
it's like
Walker.
they reach too much of an emotional capacity while around magnets. Then they have a tendency to be like,
Talking about you.
We're talking about you, but we'll go with the mic. Your
It keeps
microphone
cutting
cuts
out.
out.
oh, my bad.
Yeah, it's just when you
My
get.
apologies.
Yeah, it's just when you get worked up.
Bring the gain up a little bit then.
All right, so I'm actually gonna kick it over to Gornak.
Gornak. Well, I sent my kind of background, but I'll run over it pretty quickly. Gornak is the youngest member of a dying race who had lost all their females. Bugbear, who have lost their females. Not only was like the last one deceased, but in his birth, she perished. So that did not really set him up for success in the future. In fact, he was shunned by most of his race and not given really any companionship of any kind. As I mentioned with Meizaphir, I'm sure Gornak tried to kind of chase away the grief with substances, but whether that made it worse or it was only temporary or something, he attempted to just walk into the water and never return. While he was in the water, he was constrained, he was constricted, he was taken by the Fathomless One, because he is a warlock. And it didn't necessarily say words to him, but merely gave him an idea that he must the purpose of this. What I
Cutting out there a little bit there, buddy.
Oh no! Now he's cutting out.
oh,
Oh, there you go.
oh
You
no.
cut out at it gave him the purpose or something.
Okay, so it gave him some kind of purpose, but it is hard to decipher, as speaking to old ones always is. So one of the possible connections with Walker that I didn't butt in for was maybe he gets the kind of impression that Walker is also sort of potentially this ancient being that has been down here for centuries. Maybe the Fathomless One knows it and gives Gornak not exactly instructions to, stay with him or, don't lose sight. But maybe Gornak just feels it, kind of.
Yeah, I'm down for that. Another one of the things that like I was thinking as you were describing your things is that like even if like when you were younger or whatever, right? And you were having like a hard time, right? Like finding you somewhere like in the street crying or whatever and like sitting down and being like, "Hey, what seems to be the problem?" And having you kind of like be like, "I'm the last one," like, and like freak out.
Mm-hmm.
And like Gornak just, or not Gornak, but Walker just be like, "Well, me
So
too.
am I. Yeah.
Me too." Kind of situation where it's like, yeah, like I'm the last one too. And it's got to be harder for you because there are other people of yours around and they don't like you. Whereas I'm the only one, which comes with its own set of problems.
Mm-hmm.
Kind of thing.
How old is Gornak?
20.
Interesting. Okay. So
Bears are short-lived, right?
No, 16 adulthood, 80 usually end of lifespan.
so Meizaphir is about 22. He used to be more involved with his family and has since stopped. It is entirely possible that he was your dealer and you walking off into the water to just end it might have been a turning point for him.
I love that.
Hey, there's a good one. We were just high school buddies, and it was a gateway.
Went too far.
It showed him the darkest side of what his family does, and he was just like, I'm out.
And in a closed community like this, that is the darkest outcome, and it doesn't happen that often, right? Like that would be something that would shake you, right? Like people, we talked about this a little bit. People don't really get murdered, right? There was a food riot like 30 years ago, 40 years ago. That was a big deal when food was scarce and people started fighting each other. And there's only negatives from that, right? So even when you're doing illicit drugs, people might be falling away from the community and not really performing in the ways that they should be. But them dying, that's real bad. That's real bad for the community. That's real bad for your family. Like you yourself, Meizaphir, probably also in response to that got in a lot of trouble, right? From the family. And it probably felt weird and disjointed that your dad's family is blaming you for it could have been so bad. What were you even thinking selling him those things when they're the ones that are forcing you to do it?
Yeah, and also like a customer ending their life, bad for business too.
Right. Yeah.
So like it is financially in the family's best interest to keep people hooked on the stuff, but not too hooked.
Right.
Or, people who shouldn't be on it selling to them.
Yeah. All right, Gornak.
That's it.
So, in regards to your like idea that like the Fathomless One kind of like gave you the impression to stay close. Like, are you cool going with that and with like the idea that we've sort of bonded over being the last?
Yeah, absolutely. I don't think that he would make the connection. I think that the whole Warlock thing is kind of shrouded in a little bit of mystery. I don't know exactly how it all works in, the world of 5e. For if you see a warlock, you're like, burn the witch or whatever, right? Like, this guy made a deal with the devil. I don't think that there's just like that kind of thing, but maybe there is in this place.
Definitely depends on the community that you're in and like setting and world, right? In your case, it's similar. It is definitely viewed more negatively than a cleric is, right? Because a cleric is like you serve a god and you get your powers bestowed to you through your faith and your reverence for that. And a warlock is like, well, yeah, I do the same thing, right? I made a deal and an obligation. It's all the same thing. I get my powers from an entity that's from outside of this space. But that said, I think I for one prefer the stories where warlocks are secretive about their connections. There might be silent cults, right, that grow up, and because the things that patrons tend to ask for don't tend to be beneficial to the community, right?
Yeah.
They tend to ask for things like sacrifices. They tend to ask for things like, I want you to hoard resources and bring them to me. I want knowledge that's forbidden to mortals, right? I want you to go seek those things out. And those things tend to come with consequences for a community. So, not that Gornak needs to have kept it a total secret from everybody, but it's definitely, and unless you would like to, I would find it unlikely that he's been using his bestowed powers openly.
Yep, I'm totally cool with that, because that's kind of what I was leaning towards anyway.
Okay.
And that just gives me a little bit of, reassurance. One of the last lines I wrote is, this entity spoke to me then, when he's captured, but I cannot remember what it said or even what language it was in, but I understood one thing clear as day. I was to serve its purpose, or it would give me a fate worse than death.
Accurate.
So that's kind of like non-consensual kind of worship, kind of pact, in a way. So this whole cleric, being viewed more favorably than the warlock. Most warlocks probably choose their demons to follow, but this one was not so much.
Yeah, you were given a new opportunity and filled with purpose.
Exactly. Yep.
Yeah, but
glorious porpoise.
Yep, but that came with a cost.
Porpoise, which is convenient because I have water breathing now.
Would Walker know?
Let's figure it all out in play.
Sounds good.
Because I'm not sure.
Fair. All right, and that brings us to Kheddeerta.
All right. So, Kheddeerta Lichenstitch, her parents were originally miners in the collapse, and they had her afterwards. She's, I think, if I remember right, gnomes do live just about as long as elves or so.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, they can be 500.
Yeah, they can be aged.
And so she's on the young side at a sprightly 30 years. And
little baby.
But has been fascinated with the plant life ever since a wee youngin, and she actually probably spends a lot of time with Isla at the tavern when she's not in her own little shop making stuff. She's pretty much always on the search for new substances, new ways to distill properties from different things for good or ill, just to know what this does, what can it be used for. She kind of has this also idea of, I need to use this to help everyone around me, whether they like it or not. She's definitely the one she'd definitely be the type to be like, well, you have a headache. Oh, have you tried this? Have you done this? Have you done this? Oh, I could do this for you. You could do this to take care of that. Kind of
This might help.
thing.
She's a drug pusher, but an okay one, but a good one.
Medicinal.
Pharma.
But she is big pharma. She's very little. She's actually very little pharma.
Yes.
Little pharma, but very pharma. And kind of also prides herself a little bit on her ability to make medicines and the yes, I'm the one that supplies a lot of people with stuff when they need drugs of the beneficial kind of one sort or another.
I dig it.
And probably supplies Isla with a lot of her medicines to distribute to people, since she's also very much into that. And probably also works a lot with what's his face?
Silman, I think.
Yes, Silman, to do the gardening stuff.
I was about to ask, is she or are her parents gardeners?
I think when they stopped doing the mining, they did move over to gardening.
Okay. That's great. So they are white-robed gardeners. They proper gardeners. They carry weapons and they work in the fields.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. I dig it. And is that something? So she works with Isla. Does she work in the gardens also? Is she a gardener? She doesn't have to be but she definitely can be if you'd like.
Considering that it's the source of all of our food and medicine type components and all of that, she probably would help as much as she can.
Okay. How do you feel about her being an acolyte? So she is, So she has robes, and she's allowed to freely come and go from the gardens and work there, and sometimes has shifts there that she has to do, responsibilities that come with that. But she has the freedom still to kind of come and go. And when she's there, she's not necessarily given free reign, right? But she does have access.
Yeah, absolutely.
Cool. All right. Connections. Good, bad, adjacent.
I'd say, again, with I go out, I find stuff. I probably bring some stuff, some things home for my family from time to time, but also I can definitely bring back things that she's looking for that can only be found outside the community.
I can definitely see her giving any explorer basically if you're out there, I need this, and I need this, and if you have a couple of these, I could use those, and I'm kind of running low on this thing to make this thing, so could you kind of secure me some of that stuff?
Your Uber, your Instacart.
Yep.
Exactly.
While you're out there, just go ahead and stop by and scrape me off some sulfur from the sulfur vein, and give me some salt while you're there, and
Gorblat.
Yep, some Gorblat. Oh, definitely Gorblat. Yeah.
It goes down better with Gorblat.
It does. Gorblat. Which I've got to write down Gorblat. Gorblat.
It just sounds like you just made that up, though.
You just made
You
that
can give
up.
me some white cap whisper hoods. That would be really good too.
Ooh,
White cap whisper hood.
that sounds like a
That
deadly
sounds
snake.
dirty.
It sounds like it sounds like the snakes are in the white caps, and then the whisper hood is the cobra-like thing that eats you.
Right.
Yep.
Yeah, one of the it's the mushroom fruit. One of those is not the fruit of a mushroom.
I figured it was a really sneaky version of a thing called a white cap, which is kind of like a red cap, except the opposite, where instead of like drenching itself in blood, they try to like
Nice and
aggressively
tidy.
purify everything.
Oh, yeah, I like it.
Bleach. So much bleach.
Yeah,
The
so much
progenitor.
just caustic bleach all the time. And their like catchphrase is just like, cleanse the unclean as they throw. And they're sneaky.
Yeah, the progenitor gnomes.
Yeah.
Yeah. Checks out.
Speaking of gnomes, forest gnome, rock gnome, deep gnome?
Deep gnome.
Deep gnome.
It makes sense.
Yep.
Does that mean all of you have dark vision? Or no, Warforged don't, do they?
Warforged do not.
So Drow
At least I don't think so. I'm gonna double check real quick. But I'm
Drow
pretty sure
do. Deep gnomes do. I'm pretty sure bugbears do.
Yeah.
Gotta
deep
get
gnome
you some
sounds
infrared
superior.
eyes.
it's true. We're gonna have to.
Well,
Superior.
I do have flame bolt.
yeah, it's good. That's a good spell. You are in luck that the fungus and the mycelium in the area does glow.
The fungus among us.
The fungus among us does glow, so it's easy to make you like shoulder pads of glowing.
Oh,
Yeah.
codpiece.
Ooh, even better.
Whoa, hey.
Directional.
Yeah.
I mean, it's
like a hooded
not
lantern.
necessarily functional like ours, so like drawing attention to it isn't terrible.
Yep.
Bullseye. Lantern.
To be fair, you don't know that for certain, Meizaphir,
Alright.
because you've never met another one of his type.
If it makes
Alright.
you feel any better, though, Meizaphir, neither does Walker.
Ah,
Who knows?
who knows? Great. All right, what do we got here? Oh, NPC ties. So we've talked about some of those, but let's start with Kheddeerta again because you mentioned Isla. So, so you want to be tied to Isla Breadstone.
Probably is like, since Isla does a lot of the distribution, Kheddeerta would probably be like, oh, if you're handing stuff out, here is stuff to hand out.
Great. Medicines. And you said that you would help handle like distilling for her and maybe distilling for her boozahol. Great. Then gardeners, you have both of your parents still alive?
I think so, yeah.
Okay. Both parents alive and gardeners as well. Great. Is there anybody else that you feel, or any type of person you feel that Kheddeerta would have a relationship, positive or negative, with?
I mean, probably Lanwin, just because he's a fellow gnome.
Okay.
And gnomes kind of have to stick together.
They do, especially one that has no family left.
And so she'd probably always, drop off extra treats and different things for him whenever she can.
So I am going to try something new, which I haven't really done before, and I am going to try to have a gender fluid character in a game. We'll see how that goes. But I'm going to try it. Lanwin is actually a gender fluid character.
Oh, awesome. Okay.
I'm not a gender fluid person, but I am going to attempt to normalize thing like.
That's awesome.
Yeah, we'll see. I'm trying something that I don't see happen a lot in gaming and in adventures and in campaign worlds that get written. So hopefully we can push the needle a little bit more that direction. Great. So that makes sense. So it's Lanwin, and then we'll go back in the same direction. So Gornak.
I'm looking through them now.
So
Because I know that at one point we had we had the idea of him being
a rival.
yeah, but I kind of changed my story a little bit. I went from instead of criminal to urchin. So I don't see anything super. I got one. My one is Natalie Crowdust, and that is probably after his event, traumatic experience. It seems like Gornak can hold his breath for an inordinate amount of time. So, being kind of on the freebooter, maybe to call list, like on call, like if you have somebody or something that needs done, being able to go on that boat and explore, it's kind of up his alley.
What about him being utilized in the dockyard for repairs?
Okay.
I mean, you can do the exploring thing. I was just thinking where his ability to hold his breath for a surprisingly long amount of time would kind of first be noticed. Like, why would that stand out? And if it was one of those times he was working, trying to make money, right? Trying to make his place. I don't know, it seems like a place where you could make a mistake pretty fast. It's like his hose got kinked or something.
Sure. Yeah, and maybe that's why he may have gotten noticed.
Got noticed initially. Yep.
And then I would think that the water seems to be like more at home for him than even in this cavern, because even if it was, you know, I don't know how to explain it any other way, but even if it was like kind of a embraced, like vampiric embrace almost, that's the only one who's ever kind of wanted him.
Yep. He was shown affection in a messed up way.
Yeah, kind of like he was desired for whatever reason, unbeknownst to him.
Great. Natalie's a great one to call out there. So we don't have to stick. Also, you don't have to stick with what's written there. If there is an archetype that you think would be a somebody that you would like to have ties with, or somebody that you would like to have as a rival, we can create that. Right. I think Natalie's great. Don't take me wrong, and I think that's a great tie-in. But if there was any more that you wanted, we can make that happen.
Sure. I mean, he's probably more familiar with some of the other dock rights and whatever.
So you said he's an urchin. Would he have associated? Oh no, because you wanted him to be a loner, and they are typically loners, aren't they? Bugbears are by their nature loners.
Not necessarily, no. Smaller groups, maybe. It's not like they belong in cities, but they usually have, let's say, 8, and then the smaller ones are still a few, living in caves, in the forest kind of regions instead.
All right, I've got one for you. And Ethan, this is going to take you being open to this too. So, Meizaphir's mother was nice. That's been my understanding from what you've shared with us. She's an explorer of the water, of the seas. Her father was as well. Was an explorer. I suspect that if they saw this lonely bugbear, this abandoned child while near the docks, that they would take. Maybe that's how you first met Gornak as Meizaphir, right? Meizaphir and Gornak first met when Meizaphir was with his mom before she went missing, right? And then they reconnected a few years later when he started slinging drugs to him.
Oh, go ahead.
No, go ahead.
I was going to say, I thought you were going down the adoption route where he's shunned by his own race of bugbears. But in a town or in a city, a town, village, whatever, of 2,000, no child is usually kind of left behind. That's, a fraction of a percent. And it could have been that, like, hey, I've already got a child that's 5 years old and growing up, and here's this other one. Having two isn't double the work,
right?
Or is it?
So
it could very easily have been like a not necessarily an adoption, but like you spend a lot of time at their house.
You got invited over for meals all the time.
Sure.
You get come play with the kids. No, you don't have to leave. You can stay.
Yep. Meizaphir is only a couple of years older, so they're pretty close.
Right.
In age.
And then when Meizaphir's mom went missing, that connection just ended. Right? His grandfather died. The mom was gone. Meizaphir got plucked up by his dad's side of the family and just disappeared.
There was more grief in this new house that just compounded on the other one.
Maybe you even stayed in it. So you stayed in the house at the docks where Meizaphir and Meizaphir's mom lived originally. But the sunken sea started to rise and submerge the house. It's been rising every year, in fact, inch by inch, and started to reclaim the houses that were on the coast. And so at this point it's been, so the home...
Well, has it?
It has. So the home that you shared with Meizaphir, with Meizaphir's mom, has slowly filled with water that's now, calf deep throughout the whole household.
Somewhat happy place where you maybe found some acceptance.
We found some acceptance. And so you have gone back to it, and it is now maybe your home. If that works for you.
Yep.
Great.
Just spilled my beer.
Sadness.
So yep.
Cool.
Beer is reclaiming your desk.
All right.
I'm trying to get it.
We'll jump to Walker because we're just like I said, we're just gonna snake back. So we'll jump to Walker for connections with NPCs in town.
So we'll start with a named NPC, reading through them. Winton,
yeah.
Winton Nusk is probably a person that Walker would be interested in knowing. And one of the things that I was thinking is it says he's been the subject of many experiments.
Yep.
And that Walker perhaps was part of some of those experiments helping set up like magical devices or containment fields or amplifiers and stuff like that.
That makes sense.
And so has kind of he's known Winton like as he's grown up, and like as he's grown up and become this pillar of the arcane, checks back in with him on a not inconsistent basis to be like, have you figured it out yet? Right? Because like Walker is perpetually looking and has spent probably his life trying to figure out the answers to how he was made.
Mm-hmm.
And when Winton was showing tasks and things, right, like it's another burden placed on him to maybe help Walker find out, because Walker realizes that maybe Winton is his best chance at figuring it out. But also still like giving Winton a place to like retreat to, where he doesn't have to worry about a lot of the things that he has to worry about with other people. You know, he has a hard time connecting to people's emotions. And Walker, like, he has emotions, but he's, you know, obviously not as emotional as other people, and can function in like a way that is probably more comfortable to Winton, like, than other people. So finding a little bit of like little bit of a reprieve in his conversations with Walker than he does with having conversations with like other people. Is kind of my thoughts on some of the ways that they interact, and then also talking about magic theory and writing books. And basically one of the things that I think would be cool is if Walker has a library, all of the books that Winton has written.
Oh yeah, I like that. Yeah, I was thinking a little bit when you were kind of discussing what Walker's household looked like, his shop and his like library and study. I definitely had the feeling that it was more of like an old town, like inner wall type space that had been set aside for him, maybe converted in a warehouse that's there. That he has his own space that's, you know, a large, say like a large living room size space, right? Because he doesn't need a kitchen, he doesn't need these other amenities,
right.
But it's just packed, jam packed with his books, jam packed with his inventions, right? That he's toying with and constantly in the creative process with. It's kind of
like. Go ahead.
I was gonna say that was the vision I had in my head, was this like I'm gonna say steampunk, really nice arrangement in a hoarder, not hoarder, but in a overflowing room.
Yeah, I like the idea that like Walker will be like hanging out and he'll be tinkering around with things, and people will like come see him or whatever. And Winton will be there, and he'll be like, hand me that, right? And he'll just point at, like, in a direction that has, like, 50 things in it. And Winton will go over and grab the thing that he back to him. Whereas other people, when they're in there, he's like, oh, will you hand me that? And they're like,
I need the 1/8 inch warbler. And they're like, the what now?
Which thing are you pointing at?
Right.
And they don't know the thing that he's pointing at, but Winton often does, kind of thing. But yeah, no, you're exactly on. He has stuff, because all of it, I mean, there can be a little bit of like hoarderiness, right, in him, for sure, because it's like, well, this might be the key someday. Right, like it's one of those things where it's like, well, I don't know if it will be useful, because it's like I haven't figured it out yet. So like probably I imagine him sort of like a combination of steampunk and then like Merlin's tower from Sword in the Stone.
I dig it.
Like that kind of vibe. Might even have like a clockwork owl that he's been working on. Get.
Even though he's never seen an owl.
Yeah. Which, by the way, like one of the infusions, I think it's an infusion. There's the ability to create a homunculus.
Mm-hmm.
I'm definitely making an owl, a clockwork owl. Now that I thought of it, and his name won't be Archimedes, but it'll be something along those lines. Maybe
Alfred.
It'll be Socrates or something like that.
Here we go, Socrates, not Plato, huh?
Not Plato.
Yeah.
Maybe you're gonna go with someone not of this world, huh?
But yeah, no. So I was thinking, Winton. The other weren't named would be like other tinkerers or blacksmiths. he would probably know, like, if there's like a town blacksmith or, you know, a couple of them or whatever. He probably has like a favorite one that he goes to. If he wants like other things done, and probably one that comes to him if he's like needing help with a thing. But having like various connections to other people. And I like the idea that there's like a number of blacksmiths, like we'll say 3 just for the number, but one of them like thinks he's cool, right? And they have like a decent working relationship. The other one is like neutral about him, and then like the third one is like machines working on machines. It's just not right. Kind of situation going on. Where it's just like, I don't know. It's just weird. Kind of situation. And so like doesn't like dislike him, but is made uneasy by the fact that Walker exists.
It doesn't make sense.
So like
A machine shouldn't be able to do what he's able to do, right?
yeah. So some interactions there kind of where it's like some people find him really uncomfortable or are really uncomfortable with him,
right,
as an entity, and tend to avoid him, while other people like Kheddeerta find him like fascinating and want to understand him, and other people are like, I'm gonna go over here.
I don't know about that. Yeah.
Right. But the idea of like having, because I see him being like a person that works a lot, and like amicable, and like if Kheddeerta came up and was like, "Hey, are you going out into the dark? Because I need like blah 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 blah. Could you find?" And he was like in the middle of tinkering. Well, I wasn't planning to, but this can wait. And then he just like starts walking. Right? Like kind of thing. Like he's aiming.
He's amicable.
But having interactions with like other people that are workers.
Gotcha. Cool. I dig it. I put a note here to create some a cool, a neutral, and an adversarial blacksmith that can be disparaging your name.
I also really like the idea that at some point, I'm on a boat in this endless sea thing, right? Because they're doing something and they want my help or whatever, and I fall off, and I sink to the bottom, and then it takes me like 4.5 days to walk back, or something, right?
What
but
did you see
in
down
and
there?
having, like,
I
just-
don't know.
slowly
nothing.
walk
I
back.
can't see in the
Don't
dark.
have
don't-
dark vision.
I don't have
Yeah.
dark vision. Yeah.
Well, the light, from what I
Purple.
understand,
Purple.
it gives off a faint purple glow.
Yep.
Not if you're a fathom deep.
Right. Not if you're probably on the bottom. But maybe it does. Maybe there's other things glowing. Maybe there's fish down there.
Yeah,
Angular fish.
Something
I
like
follow
that.
an angular fish
Bioluminescent
for like a day.
algae.
Yep.
bioluminescent algae.
Yeah.
I appreciate how you went with the blacksmiths, the marry, fuck, kill.
Yep.
That's,
Yeah.
Yeah. I did. In fact, I wrote MFK, so that works out great.
uh-huh.
Yeah. Yeah.
I know what you got.
Yeah.
All right, and then we will
Is
shift.
that your number?
We will shift to Meizaphir.
So, what's that?
You seem shocked by that. You're like, oh, me? Oh,
Yeah,
no.
I was, yeah, no, I'm mostly ready. So let's see. The belly patches, I was friends with them, worked with them, would say somewhat often, since into getting out on my own and away from my family. So should have some connection with Lanwin Belly Patch.
Did the tragedy affect you, or?
Oh yeah,
Okay.
like they had a very friendly working relationship. They often collaborated on exploration out in the out in the tunnels and whatnot. You know, he's been family friends with them for quite some time now, and all of them dying in that accident was pretty heartbreaking.
Okay.
And yeah, definitely have some feelings about what happened and the potential that it was intentional.
Yeah, you're part of the. You agree in the conspiracy. Landwin's conspiracy
It doesn't feel right.
Yeah.
Yeah. Let me see. The mayor. I'm sure I have nothing to do with them, or they have nothing to do with me.
Yeah.
Winton. Yeah. Winton, I'm thinking, is roughly the same age as me, so I would say may have potentially had some connection in much younger years, in the way back.
Mm-hmm.
But then once I went and was living with my dad and my uncles and everything, I'm sure Winton was told not to hang out with me because I'm a bad element. Yeah.
Yep.
So probably nothing recent.
Okay.
As far as connections there. Natalie Crowdust. So I suspect that Natalie either worked with my mom at some point, like my mom crewed for her or something like that, or they were just friendly rivals.
Yeah, I like. Here we go. They left together, separate vessels. Your mom had found evidence. You remember it a little bit. I mean, it's kind of foggy. You were pretty young, but you know that your mom was excited because she thought that maybe she had found evidence that there was something a few weeks out on the waters. Like she'd been piecing together different bits and baubles that she had heard, and you remember there being artifacts that would occasionally come through the house for short stints that she would be working on deciphering and things like that. And she, excitedly went on one of her, well, it was her last jaunt and journey out, and she did in fact hire the Dark and their crew to be a support vessel for them. Unfortunately, only Natalie and her crew returned. Your mom's, her vessel, and her crew did not.
What did they say about what happened?
Natalie says that they, you were a kid when it happened.
Mm-hmm.
Is it your dad didn't really care, right?
Hmm.
Like he used as an opportunity to try and like extort some stuff out of her, or to make her, use the guilt of what she had done in order to get her to do some jobs for him. The guilt of what she had done being, returning, and your mom not. But you haven't actually gotten a story from Natalie at all. Your dad just said, yeah, your mom, lost it out there. It was going to happen eventually anyway. And, her vessel sank and she's dead. Boo-hoo. Get over it.
I can see him either going that route or being like, oh yeah, she'll come back someday. Don't worry about it. Shut up.
Which would you prefer?
Ooh. I feel like the latter, would be a better tack for just
For control.
ending the questioning.
Okay. Yeah, in that
Because
case.
like the like, yeah, she died, your ship went down, there's going to be endless questions about, oh, well, like, how, why? She was real good at, like, what happened, and then, you know, going to Natalie or trying to find somebody that could tell him something.
Right.
Because theoretically, witnesses, there was this whole other support ship.
Crew there. Yeah. So instead it was she just chose to stay out there.
Not necessarily chose, but maybe got lost or something. Like, he's still gonna have questions and want to try and find her. I don't know. Maybe. I can see him probably trying both ways. Hey, she's lost. She'll come back eventually. Nah, fuck it. She's dead. Just give it up on it.
Yeah.
Especially after a period of time and with the lack of
Any new
concern from him, you know, I could see any number of stuff.
I really like the idea of both, and just him like switching how he feels, like where he's like, get over it, right? If he's like super hopped up on shrooms or something, and then like other like, she's coming back, it's gonna be fine. No, you're fine. I know I said it last time, but no, it's fine.
No, he's super hopped up on shrooms.
Whatever the most manipulative option at the time is, yeah.
Right. Yeah, if he's on shrooms, he feels connected and wants to help and do all those things. It's when he's sober that he's not great to be around. That's fair.
I can also see them doing moonshining and like just any kind of illicit substance you could possibly imagine.
Snorting salt.
Oh, there's these crystals that when you grind them up and snort them, ooh, buddy.
Yep. Yeah, they definitely do that. Turns out if you take the salts from the sunken sea and you spread them on a pane of glass and let it let it mellow for a few days until all the water evaporates off of it, and then you mix that with the white cap whisperer, it'll you start growing pinprick mushrooms out of your ears afterwards, but it's worth it. Yeah.
A staple of society.
Drug making.
Drugs and alcohol.
Yep.
Now you know you've made it.
Yep.
It's
All right. So you've basically been left with both answers from your parent, from your dad, and from that side of the family. Natalie, you don't really have access to her. I think is a fair thing up until this point.
When she's in port, she's maybe busy / just going the other direction when she sees me.
Exactly. You've never been able to pin her down.
Want to deal with that?
Yeah, I mean you're pretty young, right? And she's established, right? So getting past the lines of bureaucracy to actually get to talk to her, even if she is, a quote unquote nobody, is not really doable with where you're at right now. You haven't had a reason. She hasn't had a reason to want to talk to you, right? Not yet, at least. Maybe that'll change. Maybe the son of her adventuring partner and great friend will be a great person for her to reach out to soon. Have you thought of a name for your mom, or do you want me to name her?
Ooh, I do not have names for either her or the rest of my family, so I can come up with those, or you can. I don't.
Why don't you?
Cool with either way.
Why don't you do that? I know. We had talked a little bit about you creating the last name for your parent or for your dad's family, and you decided
Rangemores.
Rangemores. That's what it is. The Rangemores.
That sounds made up.
It is.
Great. All right. Well, let me do a quick check here. I think that was the last of what I really wanted to work through tonight. Oh, special items, special powers.
Say what?
I'll take as many as I can get.
Yeah, all of them.